Hi, everybody. Welcome. I'm so excited to be back doing these live Q&As Wednesday mornings, 11 a.m. here in Pacific time zone where I live. And I'm especially excited today to welcome my friend and my moderator, Sue Grockmill, who has been behind the scenes on these lives for the last several weeks. And I just appreciate Sue's feedback, the conversation we get into, the questions that she asks, the perspectives that she brings. And I was like, you got to come on, sister. We got to do this together. So welcome, Sue.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's so lovely to have you here. And we literally we could have clogged the airwaves with our discussion over the last hour because we haven't chatted in over a month. And we're just catching up on everything and what's going on in the world and some of the big topics, some of the hot topics, pardon the pun. And we just have so much to say. I was like, oh my gosh, we got to save some stuff for the live because we're going all over the place. So just want to make sure we're doing things differently as well. I'm not streaming through YouTube. I'm streaming through a StreamYard. Hi, Frederick. Welcome. Yay. Love and light to you as well. I was just wanting to make sure that people are able to access this live on YouTube. It will be going on to Rumble. It's probably not going to be showing up live on Rumble today because I realized that there's some steps I have to go through to make that happen, but we'll have that up for next week, live on both YouTube and Rumble simultaneously. Hi, KLB. Welcome. So today, obviously, I don't know if any of you are aware, I live in British Columbia, Canada, and we are on fire right now. And Sue lives in our neighboring province in Canada, in Alberta. And I believe you just drove through the area that I live in BC a couple of days ago. Is that right, Sue?
Yes. Yeah, we just got back on Monday. So we drove from Vancouver Island, so British Columbia on the far west coast. So the ferries were starting to line up. There was a couple of ferries out. People feel quite panicked to get off the island. Even to get onto the mainland. We were couple of ways through to get to Alberta. One of them was closed, so that was on the way to see you. So that was completely blocked off. They were saying through Kelowna, we weren't sure if we could get through because everyone was evacuated because of the fires. And I'll tell you what, it was pretty grim going through because there was no one around. There was like no one in sight. So they were saying essential services only on the way through. We were thinking we almost even had to duck into the States even to get down and around. Luckily, we got through. Wasn't too heavy traffic, but the smoke followed us quite a ways. And so it was super eerie getting through and got home to windows that were covered in this straight, looked like mud on all the windows. So what it actually is rain and the ash mixed together.
So this is all of this is kind of qualifying where I want to go with our communication to begin with today. And it's probably going to be the biggest drum that I've ever beaten on any of my platforms. And that it'll continue being the main drum that I'm beating for years to come, just so you're all warned. Now we're heading into a territory that for me is like the sort of the major final frontier of being awake and addressing what's going on here on planet Earth. So how I want to introduce this topic is kind of from a few different angles. And then Sue and I are going to start chatting back and forth, and I'm going to be using the cards to have a look at specific questions that Sue may be bringing up or that you watching may be bringing forward. But I want to, as much as possible, stick to this conversation around climate engineering, and the situation that we're facing with these natural disasters and basically what we're going through. And I want to tell you, for any of you that are not aware of what's happening here in British Columbia, We've been seeing increasing fire activity, I would say, over about the last 15 years. It's been getting worse and worse and worse every year. And this year it's broken all the records, and we are technically declared a state of emergency now. And just so you know what they can do when that happens, there's people in neighboring communities. Sue was reading from one of her friends a post basically saying that they're literally on home arrest and they can't even go out to get groceries. And this is enforced by law and the military. So that's how fast it can happen. Basically, there's fires all around where I live. There's, I think, within probably 50 miles, 100 kilometers, there's probably 5 or 6 fires burning near where I live. So the smoke is unbelievable. And yeah, and I know people that have lost their properties, that have been evacuated. And so this is not false. It's not like it's not happening. So we know there's something going on. And I also want to say that I am such an outdoor enthusiast. I'm an absolute tree lover. I'm an environmental defender. I have always been. And I have witnessed firsthand through travels all over North America, but particularly in Canada, mostly in Western Canada, but also some in Eastern Canada, and down the West Coast into California, into Mexico. I've seen firsthand drought conditions that are continually getting worse and worse. I've seen death in the forests, like trees dying, you know, they call it the pine beetle epidemic. And that was for sure happening. Ecosystems thrown out of balance. That happens partially, we know, based on large scale, industrial scale logging creates such swinging imbalances in the ecosystem that you have these scenarios where certain ecosystems are completely dead, and then that affects the one next to it, and so on and so on. So that's the main area that I've been interested in for a lot of years, but equally, and now stepping right into the forefront, I've been aware of climate and weather manipulation, intentional climate manipulation. So 25 years ago, I was reading and writing papers on the trails in the sky. I don't want to say the words because, you know, I don't want to get flagged here. So I was, basically researching, looking into that. And my sensitive energy system, when I'm out in nature, I'm at one with the trees and the energy, the life force energy. I'm tuned in 100%. And I could literally see the effect of what was being sprayed in the sky. And then as we started getting, you know, these microwave radio towers, television towers, and then into internet towers, and then into cell phone towers, 5G, Wi-Fi, blah, blah, blah. I've been so aware of how that's influencing the environment, but also the spraying of a whole variety of different chemicals and manipulative agents in the skies continually increasing over the last 20 years. So I've been watching all this for a long time. And I've been saying it's the worst thing is what's being sprayed from above. It's killing the forests.
So the other thing about that is that it's killing the forest, but also the animals. And so that would be affecting all their migration routes and how it's affecting our own minds. So I was telling Ashella about the Nostradamus readings, which comes out of Dolores Cannon's work, where Nostradamus himself comes in. So she had someone in hypnosis, and Nostradamus comes in and says, I'm Nostradamus in the 1500s. I'm alive, Dolores, and you're alive. So I need you to know I'm not a spirit, but I want to interpret my quatrains because you have it all wrong. And so he talks about HAARP, essentially that manipulation, and that it actually is inhibiting our ability to think and discern. And I don't know about you, but I think I've certainly seen a lot of that, right? It's just illogical thinking and inability to actually reason, especially over the last 3 years or a few years. So.
Totally. I mean, that's a one beautiful point, Sue. Thank you for sharing that, because when we think about the full scale sort of onslaught of all these different manipulative technologies designed to control the natural realm, okay? So the laws of nature to override natural law, basically. This is about controlling natural law. And it's, the Lucifer experiment. It's about separating and saying, we know better. We can do better than nature. We can do better than God force, right? So it's hugely ego-based. It's hugely fear-based, manipulative, and on and on and on. Now, we can get off onto a huge tangent about why it's been an important part of our evolutionary development. I want to really narrow in and then look at your questions and comments afterwards, because I was so blessed. And thank you to my friend Beth. I'm calling Beth what do I call her? My Beth library, because she sends me the most extraordinary information, all the intel, and I can't even take it all in. She sends me so much, but I happened to open this one link that she sent me. I've put the link below. This is to a movie, a documentary. I think it was made a couple of years ago, and it's by a fellow named Dane Wigington. He has a website called Geoengineering Watch, and there's a link to that below. You can watch this documentary. When I saw it, it was like literally an alignment of all the pieces of the puzzle for me, and validating everything that I've been intuitively sensing for 25 years. And he's basically saying, let's not get over the edge of like extreme, how do I want to say it? If we say there isn't such a thing as climate crisis and global warming, and this is all a hoax, we've lost the plot, and we've gone so far on one side. But if we say, oh, all of this crises, environmental crises, is because of us driving cars, cows farting,
Yeah. Well, your fault.
Saying it's not. Yeah, exactly. Saying it's
manipulating with guilt and shame, scapegoating everybody around. Right. It must be you. You're doing it.
So let's just back up even a little more, and what this film that's so beautifully done, and you're going to recognize some people from the truther community in it. You're also going to meet some new scientists, new whistleblowers, and the compilation of evidence is suggesting that weather manipulation started in the late 1800s, and believe it or not, with weather balloons, with hot air balloons. And it's been going and increasing momentum since then. And it is a form of warfare, basically. If you can control climate and affect the climate over different regions and create droughts and issues for the people that you want to manipulate, then that's a pretty big power, right? It's like superpower. And after World War II, these efforts were ramped up, because a lot of what happened in the air in World War II was testing. We know there was all kinds of testing happening with chemicals, chemical warfare in both World War I and II. And so basically, there was testing about cloud seeding, about weather manipulation, using these different chemical soups. And it started right after World War II, like full on in the early 1950s is when it began.
To that point, Vandana Shiva, who is she's a scientist in like quantum energy in that realm. And what she says is that, and a huge environmentalist for years, and she was part of the driver of getting Monsanto's out of India. And
Mhm.
so what she contends is that after World War II, the concentration camps, all the chemicals used actually in the camp, they just repurposed them to spray on the food. So that was what was used for both fertilizers and pesticides, and
Mhm.
that's what they've been spraying on our food, according to Vandana Shiva. So that's interesting. And then another point I just wanted to emphasize, what we talked about before, this isn't about fear mongering and making people go into fear, because I mean, that's none of us think clearly or at our finest when we're in fear. So just like
Mhm.
Nostradamus says, I'm bringing this to your attention so we can see the worst case scenarios, the worst possibilities, so we can empower ourselves to do
Mhm.
something about it. And so that's why it's so important to bring it to everybody's attention, that now that we know, and now that we can see it, what
Mhm.
logical steps, pragmatic steps can we take to make things better, or to get into a better direction?
Totally, Sue. And thank you for that. And you read me something that was out of that writings from Nostradamus, saying that he's
Mhm.
saying all the way along, and I know it's the same with the Hopi prophecies, they're saying the reason we're telling you, like we have the word prophecy mixed up with forewarning. The
Uh,
reason they're saying the reason that we're telling you, and it's the same when I'm doing cards, it's not about, I know the end result. I can guarantee that this is what's going to happen. It's about the direction we're going. And if there's something challenging in the future, if we keep going that way, then we want to look at that and decide, make empowered choices now to shift how we navigate. Because if we
mhm.
keep navigating the way we are, we're heading right for that. So,
Yes.
it's not about
Mhm.
Nostradamus or any of the Armageddon prophecies are meant to be like, well, we're doomed. There's nothing we can do. If anything, it's the opposite. It's saying, you know what? You're big enough kids now. It's time
Mhm.
to tell you the truth. You know, it's time we tell you what's really up and you can handle it. That's why you get to know now. It's
Mhm.
like all the prophecies talk about this time and we could say, oh my gosh, we're just being like bombarded. It's always been here. This
Mhm.
all of this
Mhm.
manipulative energy, the fall from grace, the Lucifer experiment, all of the eighth sphere, all of this stuff, distortion, inversions, all of this
Mhm.
was designed and has been designed for us to have a huge learning experience. And
Mhm.
we're at the point now where we get to write the final exam, and create
Yes.
our hypothesis and say, what have we learned?
Mhm.
And what has this shown us about some of our weaknesses, also
Mhm.
about our strengths?
Mhm.
So when you check out this video, I really encourage you to watch it, be comforted in knowing that I'm not leaving you high and dry. I am going to be producing endless content in the next 6 months about solutions, solutions,
Mhm.
solutions.
Perfect.
I'm not going to just talk and frighten you and leave you hanging. There is basically, for every challenge that's facing us, what I've been shown is that we have a dozen solutions, a dozen
Mhm.
really applicable, practical, ethical, ingenious solutions, at least, if not
Mhm.
more. So
Mhm.
there's so much wisdom, creativity. Like we live in an information age like never before on this planet. We have access to folk wisdom, wisdom that's been passed down through the ages, tried and
Mhm.
true techniques. And then we're in such an incredible activation, human consciousness activation, that we are able to fuse different wisdoms together and
Yeah.
coalesce them and have them like
Mhm.
benefit, be mutually
Mhm.
beneficial. So we live in such an extraordinary time. And one
Mhm.
of the main kind of ground rules of how we're needing to navigate as we go forward from here is, if we want to stay in the fear, power dominant, um, you know, polarized frequency.
Victimization.
We just keep going down that, entitlement, like, I'm mad, boy, they've got to account for this. Like, I can't believe that they've duped me and my family and friends, and I'm fiercely mad, and I'm going to do something about it. And like, rah, rah, rah. And do you know how bad it is? Like, they're using these DEWs and, arson and this, that, and the other. And it's like, I absolutely, of course, there's a lot to be mad about. And there's probably quite a lot of truth in a lot of that, but we've got a bigger ball of wax to unravel here. And if we go into that, like, fighting, we're going to be in a fight. And if you go into, you go into trauma counseling, what's the first thing that they do is they help you get out of that fight and flight. They help you get into, like you said, Sue, where you're going to make creative, inspired, sustainable, rational choices and begin to take steps. And you can go, oh, but we don't have time. It's a crisis. Well, guess what? This whole paradigm that's been going for over 8,000 years has all been about keeping us in crisis mindset. So if you say we don't have time, we're in crisis, guess what? You're still in it. You're still in it.
The crisis that they're creating and making us just be we're victims. They're making us feel like we're victims and they're the persecutors. But I think we're here to figure out how much power we actually have. And we're going to find that out, how powerful we are, because they're not creative. They're beating the same drum. They're beating the same drum of like putting everyone into fear, divide and conquer. It's the same game. And I think we're getting onto them. So that's huge. And with that being said, like the fight or flight, I mean, when you get into I teach breath work. And so breath work is about getting into your parasympathetic nervous system.
Yes.
And so the spine is to the physical as the parasympathetic nervous system is to the spiritual. So, that's why we meditate. That's why we do work. That's the inward work, right? So getting into that where we have the inner peace. So I think that's a big piece of our work to be able to do that. And, it's also like Edgar Casey would say, we're loosening the physical when we're loosening our grip on the physical. So if we're just here and we're in fear and you're right with all torches and, moving in with anger, it's not going to get us anywhere. So it's the balance.
Well, it's interesting. We're loosening our grip on the dark physical, the distorted physical, which is all about power, dominance, manipulation, and fear. And to me, we are expanding into the potent, exponentially, statically beautiful physical, which is more capable, like as you watch this documentary, which of course, again, I point to the link below. Please be reassured that my perspective is clear that we have, as I said, not only a dozen practical solutions to every one of the things that's facing us, but also we have, as Sue said, we have exponential personal power and influence. So what could happen? Okay, those DEWs, right? Lasers. And all the different 5G, Wi-Fi, the HARP programs, all of these frequency, warfare on that level.
Yes.
It's like, it's frequency, people. It's energy. So what do they show when people meditate together? And when we actually get beyond our instinctual fear response as the victims of narcissistic bullies and psychopaths that have been controlling us for probably about 8,000 or 9,000 years now, when we get beyond that state of fearful response, we open up something where so much beautiful potential is activated. We can't even imagine what we can do one of us, you know, it's like it says in the Bible, when 2 or more of you are gathered, the cities that were saved, when it was just a small percentage of the people that were in their hearts and out of that fear response pattern, right? It's like, this is the same message. This is that enduring message that frequency heals. I've witnessed miracles in nature. I've witnessed miracles. I mean, you can look at things like Findhorn community, where they went to one of the most remote places on the planet, was just all rock and hardly even any soil. And they were able to produce the most extraordinary, magical, giant, deeply, nutritious vegetables in that area. How did they do that? Frequency. So in the material, we're getting into, like, I want to say almost like the quantum material, which is about our state. It's about our state. So if we're in this, and I'm not talking about pie in the sky, magical thinking, stick your head in the sand, someone else is going to save you. If you go back through all my videos right from the very, very beginning, I've always said, it's not about waiting for someone. You can be inspired. You can be inspired, and you can be in alliance with different organizations, different groups, different individuals that are guiding you on a certain part of your journey. But we all have to get inside here and take responsibility and find a way to make our natural gifts, our brilliance, to make it resourced, to give it agency on this planet. That's our mission. That's our riddle that we're faced with right now. So getting out there in the streets and freaking out and yelling and pointing fingers and scaring your neighbors and friends and going, no, you got to hear what they're doing. Oh my gosh, it's so bad. If you don't wake up, we're doomed. It's like, okay. Right?
So when you loosen the physical, you have the ability to open up to universal consciousness, all that is, and that's our God self, right? And that's where I would contend the answers are. I just want to say I do past life regressions or quantum healing hypnosis. There was a session long, like maybe 5 years ago, and there was a woman who saw the whole world in protest. So what do you mean? Like, what are you talking about, the whole world in protest? Like, over what? And she said, over the children, because the line for each and every one of us is the children. And so what they saw was all the tragedy coming up and being recognized of the children. Everybody took to the streets. And she was told, don't go out. You're not to go into the protest because you can't get out of it. You won't be able to get out of the anger. And some people won't. Some of us were there just to hold the light. Some of us, there were different reasons. But if you can't get out of the anger, stay back. And that's what she was told. And I had asked, the question was posed then, what happens to the children? And the answer came back is the children are all healed from the love from the people. It's pretty beautiful.
It's what really matters. And it's like, so this is partly what I want to also present and look at the cards with here in a minute. Like, there's so many different, battles, right? Like, saving the children, and then that gets into the whole battle with everything that we've been talking about. And then there's the health, and now the environment and the weather, climate crises, and and how it's polarizing. It's going to be so easy to polarize us. So easy. I've already seen it happen. I've seen it happening here in my own area because, of course, everybody's freaking out. And it's already become don't you dare leave your house and go up into the back country because a spark from your tailpipe might start a fire and you're going to condemn us all. So it's going to be easy to say you're not allowed to leave because your neighbors are going to be like, oh my God, you're going to start a fire, right? So, so this is where we say, one thing that is in this documentary to me is such a frontline point that we can all agree on. If we don't say, if we're not climate deniers, but we're not saying the strategies that they're putting in place. I was joking with my friend the other day and I said, we know very well if they try to pull on us, oh, it's only going to take 3 weeks to flatten the climate curve, right? It's like,
right. Yeah.
I mean, who's going to believe that, right? Oh, you just got to stay
Right.
home and don't go anywhere. I mean, right here, right now, where I
Yeah.
am in BC,
Yeah.
we're supposed to be this lockdown, climate
Yeah.
lockdown is until September 6th or something like that. I'm like, oh, they're already doing the 3-week thing. Like, oh, it's
Right.
only going to take 3 weeks. And then we know the fires are going to stop because what? Like,
Yeah. Yeah. We've seen this somewhere before. You think
seen
toilet
it
paper
somewhere,
was a problem a couple of years ago. Wait till you see
right?
there's, yeah,
Yeah.
the implications now. Yeah.
So if we can together go, okay, let's not get into, is there a climate crisis or isn't there a climate crisis? And take it from me, please. There is. It's more a matter of what are the major offenders in that crisis and what are the best solutions. I'm going to say it again. What are the major offenders in that climate crisis and what
Yeah.
are the best solutions? If we say, oh, there's nothing to do with us driving cars, burning oil, having industrial pollutants, that doesn't affect the environment at all. It's the DEWs and these, it's like, okay, we got to stop doing this. It's either this or that, black or white. That's the main thing. It's so important at this moment for us to not do that, because this one, you think the other one got away on us, this one can really get away on us super fast, because when people's houses are burning down and it's the air we're all breathing. Yeah. So
Valerie says, just like we can bring calm to a situation by our response to it, we can also calm the elements by focusing on it, focusing on the calm within.
Thank you, Valerie. Beautiful. One of the best solutions. And it's not magical thinking when more of us are working on that together, when more of us are praying in that way together. And especially if it is in that place of like imagining nature listening to you and saying, thank you. Thank you for caring. Like, I mean, I sit here and watch this, all these like $1 million homes burning to the ground and people freaking out. And I'm like, oh, wow. Okay. We're going to put all this energy into saving your $1 million, $5 million, $10 billion home. And all these animals out in the wild that are basically being incinerated. They already have such a small habitat that hasn't been, dominated by human civilization. And now the little bit that they have left is being torched like nonstop. And they don't have anywhere to go. Like we're inside. We can't even go outside because it's so thick with smoke. The animals are out there. The trees are out there. So I'm sending my loving compassion, and it's not about shame or guilt. I am like praying with Gaia and with all the sentient beings on this planet that are out there in it, that we find the healing resources to turn this into the wave of healing for all of us. That this becomes, it isn't the end of the world story. I mean, nature is so powerful. The power of our prayers, the power of, the little sprout that can pop through the cement, the trees that can be cut and annihilated and burned, and then new life is growing within a year. Like, lakes that are saturated with ash and lava from a volcano, and the scientists say there's going to be no life there for 500 years, and a year later there's life. We just don't know what the new earth is going to look like.
Just what I was going to say, exactly. And is this the segue into the new earth? destroying the old and the segue into the new earth. So everything's burnt, and then what comes up from underneath. And so how is this related to the new earth?
Exactly. You ever hear about, and I'm hearing from the guides that it's a lot of cultures, a lot of indigenous cultures around the world, when something died, they would cut their hair off. And it was like, because this is what you've had on you while that was alive, and that's ended, and you're releasing that part of your story. It's like the hair, our hair and our nails, the thing that can keep growing. So there's something about, to me, it's like, if you think about some of these trees and life that has been around, it's literally taking that old energy away with it. However, we can't do it all at once. It's dangerous the way they've basically created a Frankenstein here. Yes. A monster. Yes. And it's out of their control. And when I say they, we know who we're talking about. The dark cabal, who've been going for thousands of years and getting really experienced, as you say, Sue, not creative, super manipulative.
Consuming, not creative. Please don't tell me I have to cut off my hair. I look terrible.
No, but it's just about, it's like there's something, people panic and go, we're going to have no life form left here. And I feel like, well, for one thing, if every one of us planted a tree, and, I'm talking about plant a native species tree in an environment, like, look online, there's a million videos on it. It's like, find a native species tree, plant 3 or 4 of them. Maybe not all of them are going to survive, but like, if all of us do that, there's a whole pile of trees that are going to start, and care for it. Like, plant it on your land or nearby where you can go and water it and make sure that it's surviving through this time that we're going through.
Yes. Yep. All over the cities, right? Throughout the cities. The Nostradamus readings comes into the end of the time of troubles, in that, there will be that time where that's what we'll be doing, planting trees, pulling up pavement, and it'll be a major time for celebration. And I feel like we'll come up to the other side of that. It's just a matter, there's no way out but through at this time. So here we are.
No way out but through. And yet, what an honor to navigate and bring the wisdom, the intelligent. There's so many truly intelligent people, like the Looney Tunes ones that are in power right now. Like they're really off their rocker, the majority of them. And so it's like, we can't even imagine what it's going to feel like to have people who are really truly intelligent, critical thinkers, wise people that are specialized in different areas. I just do work with all of these different healers and creative thinkers, new paradigm creators and builders. And I'm always amazed. I'm like, how is it possible that people with that kind of wisdom and intelligence and ingenuity can coexist with these other, narcissistic psychopaths that have so little intelligence?
Yeah, they're ignorant.
And that they are, that it's slanted where they're the ones that are so-called in control. And the only reason that is because they've got us off balance, fighting each other instead of focusing, not fighting, but focusing on how to bring awareness. The transparency is where we're at. And this is what my dear fellow here, Dane Wigington, I'm going to bring him on my show. I'm going to contact him this week and get him on here and ask lots of great questions to him.
And they've held us down with guilt and shame, made us all fault, and we've accepted that fault. And so like none of us are victims in the end. And so just fertility or delivery here says the children also signed a contract. Absolutely. I mean, and that's a tough one to look at, and I don't want to get contentious about it, but yes, we've all agreed to be here. None of us are victim. I don't believe that for a minute. And as long as we continue to victimize ourselves and make them the persecutor, we've given our power away, or continue to do that. And I just wanted to say, I talked to a First Nations woman yesterday, and she said, we watched the animals. She said, and we were told, like, it was brought down for 20,000 years. We watched the animals, we watched the plants. We knew when we were planting how to do it because we were watching and we were sensing. And she said, when they were colonized, they made sure that the First Nations could not sell any of their vegetables, and made sure that they couldn't plant any, made sure they couldn't do that because they were doing much, much better. So it's interesting. It would be wonderful to go back and find out these practices, and
these practices. I've been interested and involved in permaculture for 30 years, and permaculturists, the really, highly developed, self-actualized permaculture teachers and mentors around the planet, they know this. They've studied indigenous things from all over different cultures all over the world. They know about how to invite rain, how to work with different ecosystems, how to circulate. And I mean, it's just such a fascinating study.
The rain dance, just going in and thanking the creator for the rain before it comes.
They actually know
that would be.
They actually know how to plant, in what kind of rotations, in what, they literally, because the whole thing is designed on long trajectory, right? It's like they actually have planting rotations that are 20, 50, 100 years.
Yeah,
so that technology
cycles, pairing the beans and the corn and the
But
making whole ecosystems, like greening the desert, the middle of the desert.
They've done, permaculturists have done miracles with soil that is polluted, destroyed, no vitality. And within 10, 15, I mean, if you watch the movie, The Biggest Little Farm, a beautiful story of that.
It's good one.
In the beginning, it's devastation. There's nothing. Slowly it starts to recover. But in the recovery process, there's a lot of things going sideways. And if they just went in and tried to manage with a short-term crisis management band-aid, they'd throw nature out of whack further. So they have to just keep working with the natural system. And their mentor said it's going to be about 10 years, and nature will send in the different things to fix what's happening.
And what the crisis has been doing over the last few years is putting us into reaction and short-sighted. It kept them being like, don't be short-sighted. If you have to do that to keep your job, that's short-sighted.
Exactly. And I mean, this is where, back a couple of years ago when I first got my platform going, and people are very frustrated with me. They get frustrated that I'm talking long terms. I'm talking beyond our lifetime. And that is for the children, people. That is for, I mean, one of these characters that's one of these science climate manipulators, he actually jokes in the video about stealing from our grandchildren and laughing, going, well, we haven't got any choice, right? We have to. It's like, are you kidding me? If that's where we are, let's just give up. What a terrible way to approach. This is the best science that you can produce, is laughing about stealing the life from our grandchildren. Shame for shame. There's just so much available to us, so much exquisite intelligence and wisdom. And basically that's my mission, is to bring more and more of that to the forefront, get people engaged in what does it look like to start getting involved with things like permaculture, with things like kin's domains, with things like, and basically we need to have land to do it. We're not going to be able to do very good if we're in their lockdown smart city with no access to land or soil or anything. So this is the point where it's so essential that we bring the transparency to people who are asleep. We got it. We were tested with the, you know what, the big C thing. We were tested with that, and we didn't do a super great job of waking up our sleepers, right? We see what we did wrong there. Did we see what we did wrong? We banged them over the head with too much information too fast. We shamed them. We freaked out. We went in like, you know, tantrum. We were in a tantrum. Like, not all of us, and some people actually did get through, and did gently continue to bring, you know, to be courageous enough to stand in the backlash of it all. This time, this is it. That was the dress rehearsal. This is the big event. And so,
love is a verb, I would say then, you know, like that it's rubber to the road now, right? Yeah. It's like,
and how we're going to bring them to the transparency is to talk in sort of visualizing things that are obvious to everybody, not the most extreme things in our arsenal, but the things that are obvious. And like, you know, making the statement like, okay, this is the solution to a climate crisis, is to have 3 weeks to flatten the curve. Like, we can use the tactic that they imported to us in reverse to tell people like, look, this is not the way to solve that. And then you come up with a whole bunch of other ways that it could be solved.
Yeah.
You know, it's like,
so can we ask the cards?
Yeah.
What I'm wondering is that with the fires, what good is coming out of the fires? So we know how devastating it is, but what good is going to come out of this? How is this affecting Gaia? And what does this have to do with the new Earth? What's the lesson here for us? I have a lot of questions.
Whoa. Okay. Well, this card was at the beginning of my soul sampler this week, and I talked about this week is going to be a week to cut through to the absolute bottom line brass tacks of things. And interesting, that very night I was introduced to this video and I was like, oh, cool.
You know,
it's not like like this is an easy route. It's just, this is to me the top of the pile of priorities. This is the top of the pile of priorities to focus on. And so it's like we need probably, I would say, maybe another 2 or 3 weeks before we really jump in and start doing something big about this, because it's brewing, right? It's going to be, this is the fall. They're intending to turn the climate crises into the next, you know what? And so, and I saw that funny comment about if they're going to have a climate change job.
Yeah.
Good one. Girl.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, right? It's like 3 weeks to flatten the climate curve. I mean, it is funny because it becomes really obvious. Now, the reason is basically to get people so afraid that they have to open their eyes.
Yes.
You know, it is like, and that my daughter, my older daughter, she works in the service industry, and she's watched the curve of people, you know, being awake to things. She has these conversations. Of course, she's fully awake. She has these conversations with people. She's so good. She's so diplomatic and able to kind of navigate and get them talking and thinking about, at least thinking, right? Like, that's the best thing you can do, is get them when they're scared, curious and thinking. Curious and thinking. And I had a lady, I've actually had a few clients that have come to me and said, yeah, I was asleep and this is what woke me up. And a lot of times it's something that isn't the thing you're pointing at. So it's like you're getting them where they're going, okay, something is really not right. So that's what she's saying. She's like, everybody's going, uh-oh, something's really not right. And like, forget about hanging on to getting on an airplane and going on holidays or whatever. Like, they're going, there's too many things rocking. And people are like, their eyes are opening wide and they're like, oh. And if you get them in that place, gently saying, okay, if we're talking climate, let's talk climate calmly. Let's invite them to be curious, ask questions. Why would this be the best way to solve this? It's not going to be a 3-week to flatten the curve. Why would they try to do that way? How is this not really, how is this like them hypocritically doing their thing while we all have to pay for that? How is this them, they're still logging and cutting down old growth forests for corporate gain, but we're supposed to lock ourselves in our houses so that trees don't burn? I don't understand. Get people, they're afraid enough, they're seeing deer in the headlights enough, and then they're going, you say, okay, what is actually the main contributor, saying it again, to this climate crisis, and what would be some of the most ideal long-term solutions? We're letting them dictate the solutions, right? These G8 summits and stuff, they're deciding our climate solutions. And as ridiculous in the area that I was visiting this summer, which is all my permaculture friends that all have organic gardens and been doing this for 30 years. Now the regional district authority is coming down with these, suggested legislations. It's basically they're not allowed to grow vegetables and have a compost pile. That's going to change the fires that are bursting all over the planet. It's like, how is that a solution? How is having less autonomy with our food? Okay, so now we're going to buy our food in these big corporate stores. Oh, actually, no, it's going to be shipped to us and we're going to be in these facilities.
You can't collect rain anymore in California, rain barrels. Can't do that. On Vancouver Island, they have environmental police coming around and charging you for your own groundwater.
For your groundwater. And what happens, we can actually have the water tested and the air tested, which is what they're doing in this video that I've been promoting for you to watch. And we can see what's in the rain. And that did not get there from a natural cause. And it is not just our industry. Yeah, we got to go. This is it, folks. We got to go into the heart of it now.
Yeah.
So the fires, nature is giving us a gift. Nature's giving, like, in a way, it's like she's sacrificing herself so that we can wake up.
Wow.
Yeah. And it's gonna get worse. I'm sorry. Like, I know you all want a quick solution, but this is going to go, we got to go down. We got to go into this.
Yeah.
And let's see what the advice says. Oh, Ace of Cups. New beginning, heart-centered, working with healing our own traumas so we respond from that place.
Is this bringing up all of our trauma? And this is just a question, bringing up all of our own trauma, collective trauma, so we can heal it. So it's pulling it all out of all of us. That's what I
and then reciprocity and win-win situations. So it's forcing us to get out of me, myself, and I ego. It's forcing us to bring up all our trauma to be healed. And then it invites us to co-create with nature. It invites us to co-create with each other, to come up with these beautiful solutions. Like you were saying about New Earth. Oh my gosh. So lovely.
Yeah.
So lovely. So I don't like saying, hold on. I don't like saying timelines because it's hard as a reader, but I'm going to put this out there just to give you a little bit of something to kind of navigate with. It's not absolute. There's no absolutes with any of these divination practices, but they give us perspective that we can navigate with on the next step or two. That's what the information is designed to do. So what I'm being shown is the next 10 weeks, it's going to get really intense. And the next 10 months is going to feel like we're going down. Yep. And I know that a lot of you are watching different truther channels and being encouraged to trust that there's a lot of saviors that are on their way to help us. And I am not discounting that. I am not discounting that. What I want to bring your awareness to is that in order for us to actually evolve and heal, we will need to face things on a deeper level within ourselves individually and collectively. And without doing that, we're going to end up in the same kettle of fish we were in before. So this is a deep dive, and we have to go to the bottom. It's like, what do they say about the addict, right? You got to get to the bottom. So I'm not saying that there won't be any saviors. I'm not saying that there won't be any supportive organizations and groups and, all of that. I'm saying that I'm not focusing on that, because that's about giving my power to something outside of me that I have no agency with. So I encourage all of you to focus on what you do have agency with, and to really trust that, to really start to honor, admire what is in your personal toolkit. What strengths do you have? What allies do you have? I've talked about the personal value statement. I'm going to be mentoring and teaching people how to build their personal value statements so that we can go forward into an economy of a different type of economic trading and sharing based on true value. So it gives us the 10 weeks, 10 months, down, 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 down. Within 2 years, where is it? Where's my camera? There it is. Within 2 years, it's up. So the beautiful thing is about all of you watching who are really ready to step into that potency of who you are and what you carry, and to do your inner trauma healing work, to take some responsibility in the outer world, to get into, again, all of these different systems that I'm going to be talking more about, new paradigm stuff, get actually involved in your community, in your group of like-minded friends and family, take responsibility. We're going to be on the thin edge of that wedge, and we're going to see the light of day before the others. They're still going to be down spiraling. And you said, Sue, you read to me earlier before we came on, you read something about one of Nostradamus's predictions around the thing in the hand, and what was that?
Yeah. So it basically said that we'll come to a time, there'll be a number. We'll all have a number, and you'll be able to see it under the light. And I actually heard Greg Braden mention that he's seen that now at the grocery store, people going in and there's like a light and then you can see the number. And that it was like, that is for our learning. And that there will be a few of us that'll say that is never happening, but we'll be the absolute fringe renegades. But it wasn't just for our learning. There were, there's beings that are watching us, and it is the higher spiritual realm is watching us, and they are evolving and learning from what's happening here on Earth. So it's a massive, massive picture.
It's a massive picture. And, whenever I hear that about like a lot of people, this has been my narrative for years. I really liked being on the rebel fringe. I've always been that person, and I highly identified with it. And it is a little bit of an ego thing, it's like, hey, I get to be part of this. We're tough, we know all this stuff, and like we're willing to like risk it all, and we're revolutionaries and rebels and on and on. And I've come to a place, I'm getting closer to a place of I'm actually intending and imagining that the majority will wake up and very few will end up with this thing. Like, you know, and I love Catherine Austin Fitts is in the documentary below. And I love a couple of the comments she said about transparency and about, you know, okay, these power dominant controllers have created a Frankenstein monster here, weather monster. And, you know, when you get a grip on just how long this has been going on and how big a disaster it really is, it's terrifying. And also, yet, as I said, there are so many, like, she's basically saying, admit what you're doing, like, admit it and say, we don't know what we're doing now. It's out of our hands. So people with real, like, savvy ability to work with multiple systems and, you know, this kind of win-win situation where it's not just finding it, where's my cameras, this kind of win-win reciprocity situation where it's not just a band-aid on a massive crisis. It's like this is long-term thinking that isn't, one thing doesn't have to sacrifice and suffer so that the other thing benefits. It's like, no, none of that anymore. We're not going to go for solutions where, you know, they're joking and saying, oh, well, yeah, well, we want our grandchildren won't live, but at least we get to live. Like, are you gotta be kidding me? Really?
Yes.
You know?
And you know, when you say 2 years, I mean, the first thing that comes to my mind is like, you gotta be kidding. 2 years we've been through, so I can't do another day. And I hear a lot of that, but that's not, you know, we were talking about that earlier. We want someone to tell us it's fixed, it's fine, those are good things that are happening. And, you know, I've heard, like, you know, stuff they're spraying is good now, or this or that. And it is a little bit of magical thinking that it's like, yes, we want it to be that way. And yes, let's visualize that. And I get it. But at the same time, denying what's happening, and just wanting a quick fix so we can go back. And I think we're pushed so hard so we can never go back. Push so hard out so we can never, ever go back.
That's what this is saying. That's what this is saying. And unfortunately, it had to get to this point, you know. And I want to just sort of toot my own horn, and then I want to take questions from the audience. But I have to say, and my older daughter, when we watched that documentary, she was just like, oh my gosh, Mom, I'm so sorry. I want to just kiss your feet like you. She's like, you said this 25 years ago. Yeah, I was like reading and writing papers on the trails and the effect and how it was killing the trees and creating drought. And also that's just part. And then the other whole side of it is like how it's spreading these horrible chemicals and affecting our hormones and our brains and on and on and on, right? So
causing us an inability to think and discern and all of that, right? And so, so blame other people for, like, your sheep, you can't think. People literally can't think anymore. We're full of chemicals,
so we
right?
can have compassion on these sleepers because some of them, maybe their brains are just full of aluminum. Like, you know, like maybe we're the lucky ones whose brains or bodies somehow are metabolizing this better. Like, let's think about it that way. Let's think that, like, we're fortunate that we have brains that are still functioning enough to see, critically think, and see big picture logistics, you know, and patterns, and say, okay, not only can we see that, but then if we can think that way, it's up to us to work together and create solutions. You know,
yes, and hold the line, like someone was saying that too, you know, like just hold the line and keep clear, keep yourself clear.
Yeah, keep
clear
yourself
minded, right?
Totally. I want to take a question.
I see here Neckbone says, I heard California passed a law hooking all solar and wind to their energy system. When groups of people ward off the weather, did that recently at an event and held off the rain. So how much? So here's what question's coming to me is that's great. Like, so if I can stop a storm over here, did I cause, say I can do that with my mind or a group of us do it, but do we cause something over there? And I'm likening it to almost rescuing somebody. It's like, oh, that almost happened, but I rescued you. But there was a lesson in there for you, for the universe. So you didn't get the tap, then you didn't get the slap because I didn't let you have it. Now you're going to get the 2x4 and then the truck, and so it's part of our own lessons, and part of our learning. And so what are we getting from all of this? So are we to be preventing these fires and whatever? Is this just part of what's going to happen to take its course?
Yeah, let's look at how, I mean, all with the spiritual traditions and work that I've done all these years, the first step is humility, absolute humility. It's not shame. There's a difference. Shame is like, okay, I feel terrible. And if we feel terrible, then we're automatically disempowered. And then we're actually not really showing up for spirit or nature or God or Gaia. We're just, yeah. So it's humbly saying, okay, I'm ready to listen. I'm ready to listen. I'm ready to be shown. I don't need it to be fast. I'm gonna slow down and I'm gonna listen and watch. Please send me signs. Please show me how I can be of assistance. And what I'm hearing from the guides, and when I say that, what I'm referring to is all the team of guides that I'm tuning into, which is some of your spirit guides, ancestors, angelic beings, the nature spirits, the totem animals, on and on and on. The way I work with guides is I'm not tuning into a specific being or I am turning into a frequency. I'm tuning into the frequency, the power and neutral bandwidth of the heart. So in that frequency, we are being shown perspective that gives us the ability to feel strong and safe and confident and not respond in fear, and to be creative, and to see challenge from a lens of like courage as opposed to a lens of reaction and resistance. So in that heart-centered power neutral frequency, that's the messages that I tune into. And I'm really hearing that those messages are suggesting that our inner work is, I'm hearing 80 or 90% of what we want to be focusing on right now. So like trauma healing, therapeutic trauma healing, hypnotherapy, like what you're doing, Sue, and so many different, like whatever works for you, whatever really resonates and makes you feel good, makes you feel like the frequency is expansive, warming, heart-centered, encouraging. Those are the medicines for you. It's not a one size fits all. So,
and I often hear you say over time is that, you do some of your own healing and then you're healing out and then you're going back and forth. It's not we're ever evolving. It's never going to end. So when's it going to end? It's never going to end.
Well, and they're showing me almost like these hills and valleys, and there's something, you go down into the valley, which is where you access nourishment. It's where you get the water. It's where you get together and have your celebrations and all that kind of stuff. And then you go up onto the mountain to get a perspective, to get a big picture perspective, and then back down to the valley. So, this journey of evolution is hills and valleys. It's not a flat, boring lane, 5-lane highway that's going 90 miles an hour, because we don't really get
a straight road through. No, absolutely. Yeah. I've been looking for that straight road through and I haven't found it.
Yeah. So we were asking about what is our working with Gaia and with the weather. How is that going to help? Can we be of help? What Yeah, interesting.
Like, is their
Oh,
influence good? Is it?
yeah. So it's interesting. It's a little bit of that hills and valleys. Again, I'm getting, because the advice is we get information. Some of it is about taking action and bringing information to people right now. So I
Okay.
feel like maybe even in the next couple of months, there's a lot of information where that would be like, I want to get Dane Wigington on my channel and some others that I really respect and admire that are awake and also working with climate crises, and get some really amazing conversation communication going. And also, how do we get this message out? He actually has on his website the first steps to bringing people's awareness to this. Like, what order do you share it in? Where do you start?
Yes.
And this is what I'm saying. If we start talking about DEWs and, laser. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like when you start selling Mary Kay or you found Jesus and everyone else has to, and people are running on
Well,
their
it's
phones and all
also,
this
it's just so
talking,
like
you
for people who are barely able to grasp any
know?
of this, it's too much. It's too
Yeah.
far. I'm not saying those things are not happening and that they're not really concerning. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is it's it's almost less of a concern than this continuation of this lie that we've been living in, which
Yeah.
is, what is the cause of this climate crises, and
Mhm.
what are the best steps, step by step, long-term strategies to address it?
Mhm.
So if we discover the causes are not, like, maybe it's 30% human action, like driving vehicles, as you said earlier, Sue, when we were talking, like, well, what option did we have? Like, the
Yeah.
other technologies were taken from us, right?
Yes.
So it's
Yeah.
like, it's nothing about being ashamed, but yeah, driving vehicles, burning fuels, burning fossil fuels,
Yeah.
industrial waste into the atmosphere, and the cows farting, right? It's like, okay, what if it was 30% that? But if 70% is this manipulation that is now turned into an absolute Frankenstein disaster, I think we need to be talking about that. I think that needs to
Yeah.
be the first thing that we
Yes.
address. Like, if we zoom out and go, oh my gosh,
Yes.
that's the big giant elephant in the room.
Yeah.
You can talk about weather manipulation gently. You can, like, bring it to people's awareness. They've all looked up in the sky and seen things. Everybody knows there's chemicals being sprayed on our land, on our crops, in the air. Everybody knows that. And if
Mhm.
we can make a direct link between those chemicals, the effects of radiation, Wi-Fi, 5G,
Mhm.
HARP, which
Mhm.
also everybody knows. Okay,
Mhm.
they know that
Mhm.
it's affecting us. If you can
Mhm.
make those correlations and say, this is what's creating die off in the forest, droughts, extreme weather patterns, and this needs to stop
Mhm.
first. We can
Mhm.
get the majority of people looking that way, then 70% could be brought to a halt within the next 2 years.
Yeah.
And then we can start bringing out, oh yeah. And basically, they've been destroying the natural weather system to the point where nature is so out of whack
Yeah.
that the forests are tinder. For those of you that do not go into forests, I mean, like I said, I spend a percentage of every year of my life camping out, like, not just a weekend. I go out for weeks at a time. This is my life. I've done this since I was a child. I've been in the forest. I've watched it change. This is real. It is dry as a bone all over the place. And we've had, and it's continued to get worse year after year after year for the last 20 years. So there's no denying that. It's about what is causing that and how are they using that to, it's a perfect storm to plop us into another lockdown and throw away the key.
Yeah.
Because this is not going to be a flatten the curve, as I said.
What does that say there? What do the cards say?
Well, what I'm getting is, it's this, we're going to be working mostly getting messages out, bringing that awareness, and then doing our inner work. So trauma work, trauma healing. I'm bringing one of my dear friends on, Rebecca Goutal, who was on my channel a couple of years ago talking about trauma. She's got a whole program set up now on her website, all these free resources, free workshops and stuff. So you can all access that, those offerings, and start doing some of the work around healing trauma states, the work that you're doing, Sue, which you can tell us about in a minute. So we're going out with information, critical, timely information, demanding transparency, but being very, very careful and clear in how we do this.
Okay.
Not banging the drum that's going to polarize people.
Yeah.
And then we're doing the inner emotional work. That feels like a couple of months. And then there's going to be some kind of a magical alchemical coalescing taking place where people are going to and this is part of what I want to do on my channel, is I want to get a few of these amazing people and get them talking amongst themselves.
Yes.
My daughter was saying the other night, she was like, we need our own world summit of inspired, we need an annual, a biannual, a monthly summit. We need summits of our people, and
the
not
wisdom keepers.
the wisdom keepers, and not just the people that are shouting truth rally cries. In fact, I think we've heard that a lot, and we need to focus towards people who are actually creating new paradigm realities that are going to be the replacement of all of this insanity.
Because that would be the segue to the new earth.
That's the segue to
the answers. I mean,
those people, I keep saying it, and I know people don't quite believe me, but I've lived in those communities, and it is a new earth. And unfortunately, there's a lot of division even in those communities where people are living their values, like they're living simply, they're living off grid, they're growing their own food, and they have an incredible relationship with the natural world and a lot with each other. But even a lot of those people got walloped by what happened over the last 3 years, and there's been divisiveness in their communities too. So there's a lot of healing to happen, but there's people with wisdom in each of these areas.
Yeah. Yes.
And in the end, it's going to be painful, but where there's so much resilience, nature is so resilient. And in, the end of this story, Sue, I think, is that this is the feminine way, right?
Yes.
The feminine way is to say, okay, let's look at the whole story here. The masculine
community, connection, reciprocity, all of the divine feminine, that's all been but laws.
Totally. Building healthy
systems. But cooperation, like living in the laws of nature, all the divine feminine.
And, the masculine is a bit more problem, reaction, solution, quick, direct action, solution. Let's get solutions. Let's make it happen. And it's like, okay, but we're in a multi-system complex transition here, and we're quite vulnerable in this. So we need strategies that are more expansive, multi-system, that feminine wisdom perspective, which takes longer, but it's more thorough. And it's, in the end, we actually restore harmony, and we bring the healing to Gaia. Like it's us with all that we already are and know, we have everything we need to heal this planet and to heal ourselves. So,
you know what's really interesting is when I had a session of someone came in to a hypnosis session, and she all of a sudden about half an hour in said, somebody's trying to get in here. Somebody's trying to get in.
mm-hmm.
And she, I just have to move out of the way. And she leaned forward and she said, this is your father. My father passed away 2 weeks before. She said, this is your father. And I was like, so he told me about the death process, how it was really quick, how he was pulled out of his body, met with beings. He told me how, you know, I asked if the prayer that I had said helped him to get, and he said, yes, that's why you learned that prayer. And then he said, it's beautiful here. He said, it's beautiful. He said, I'm not out yet. I haven't learned enough to get out yet, but I've gone this far. He said, and it's bright. The colors are beautiful. He said, everybody lives in harmony. Everybody, everything lives in harmony. And he said, that's the new earth. And that's where you're headed. And he said, and it's doable.
It's doable. It's doable. Yeah, it totally is. I'm just looking at, people are asking some personal questions, and I'm going to ask if we can keep the questions, because we've got big stuff going on here, if we can keep it more in the realm of the conversation. I do see Mar M is asking, is our DNA being upgraded by the sun, or is that misinformation?
Nice.
Look at that, because a lot of this is also about blocking the sun. That's what the
whole isn't that interesting? Is that part of the whole smoke? Is that why? Well, I also had a friend just recently say that she asked for upgrades. She's like, she'll say, can I have an upgrade? And so when I was in the forest, so I was just in the forest the other day, an old growth cedar forest, they actually had it closed off for 4 years. And if you go in, it's a $26,000 fine to go in to this old growth forest. And the other old growth forest on the island is closed off this year as well.
So that's what we're basically, no more sun, no more trees, no more land, no more gardens.
And for those who may or may not have gone in anyways, would see there's only a step or two broken. There is no devastation in there. So it was close to a storm, which happened, but there's like a couple of steps that anybody could fix. And so it was closed off, $26,000 to go in, or if you get a fine to go in.
Okay, so this is a very interesting, thank you, Sue. And Mar M, I've got interesting analysis coming here, because I'm actually getting that's connected to our emotions. And as we shift out of being manipulated by fear and power dominant emotional reactivity, which is the which nervous system is it? One that's the sympathetic, or the
parasympathetic nervous system is connected to God. So the sympathetic nervous system is what holds us to the earth.
And the sympathetic nervous system has the fight or flight. Correct. So we actually affect our own DNA, according to this, through our emotional, like as we align in the parasympathetic, connected to God emotionally, we are attuning to a different DNA strand frequency. So they're saying it's not actually being done to us. We are agreeing. And then when we hold that frequency, that love frequency, and that parasympathetic nervous system ability longer and longer, that actually is shifting our DNA. So we are upgrading our own DNA.
We're doing it all, aren't we? This is all us. We're doing it.
Well, I mean, you know, I'm not
happening on the outside, and this is what I'm
sure, but this is showing, like, you know, it's, and we are still, what we're doing is we're fluctuating in and out of that parasympathetic state. And we go out because there's all this spraying and, nanotechnology and the 5G and the HARP and you name it, this, that, and the other thing. And all of the collective anxiety and the, MSM pushing all these narratives down people's throats, everything, right? The crises, the natural weather crises and all that kind of stuff. So we are struggling to sustain the parasympathetic, but we are getting better at that. So if you were to put any one of us 5 years back and put us in what we have to face every day now, we'd be toast. We'd be toast is what the guides are saying. Like, we are doing it. We are getting good at this, and we're learning how to work with our nervous system states.
So just getting into the parasympathetic nervous system is all like the heart math stuff. It's slowing down the heart, slowing down the breath, getting compassion in the heart. And that alone finds us. You can do that in 2 minutes, What percentage of humanity is?
Nada is asking about a personal thing. So I'm asking if you would not do a personal question. I'm sorry today.
Valerie at the bottom of Shella says, what percentage of humanity is now awake? So in the Edgar Casey readings, he says the book of Revelations, which would what people would say like now the end times that we're in, he said the book of Revelations is within. So when he was talking about the 7 churches, that was the chakra system.
Well, and like I said, like I was saying, these prophecies and the book of Revelations is designed as a roadmap so that we don't have to go over the edge. It's like we can see the edge. If you can't see the edge, you don't know it's there and you probably go over it, right? But if you can see it, you can be like, okay, I got to turn now.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes, it's a good time to
start turning, everybody. Come on. I feel like you're showing me we're all in a boat and we're all like, lean this way.
Everybody. No. Too much. Right? Yeah.
Will we have a bring us to our knees moment? Well, okay, it's kind of what I've been saying. And I guess it's how you look at this. I've been on my knees, I feel like, since I was born this lifetime. It's like to be awake and aware, we are already on our knees.
I wonder, does he mean like this collective aha that we're all
and that is what I'm saying when we were looking at the fires and this whole like climate emergency. Again, it's going to be such a big job for us to not polarize. And like, it's almost like if we think about that boat analogy, if we rock the boat, we tip us and everybody else out of it. So we've got to stay Gardo, my knees hurt, right? It's like mine do too, a little bit, but maybe we can find a new kind of yoga to do down there instead of just feeling like we're victims.
Pull some weeds while we're down there or something. But I can see with the boat analogy, that's almost panic mode. Like, we got to do it now, and then everybody too much, too soon.
Too much rocking of it. Like,
yeah.
We feel like we've got to shake people awake, but actually it doesn't really work like that. The best way to get people waking up is to get them asking questions, not telling them information.
Yes.
That's a thing that I need to repeat that again. Get people asking their own questions, not telling them, because if they go looking for the answers, if they ask the questions and then come to you for the answers, you're golden. That's the ticket right there. If you tell them, of course they're going to go no, and then when they go no, you go, oh yes, da 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 da. It's just the old parenting model, right? Mm-hmm. Like even a little reverse psychology probably couldn't hurt at this point. And the thing about like remind people as they start to line up to like lock themselves in and not go anywhere because of the climate emergency. Remind them what happened the last time they told us 3 weeks to flatten the curve. Like, clearly this is not going to be solved in 3 weeks. So it's like, if that's the best they can do for solutions, I mean, it isn't a solution. It's actually a way they've hijacked the emergency that they created, problem, reaction, solution. Now they're offering us the solution based on total panic, fear, short-term thinking. Not good enough.
Well, in your parasympathetic nervous system, you have your intuition. And what I found between breath work and quantum healing, or putting people into hypnosis, for them to trust themselves. How do I know that with me? How do I know that's true? Well, the strongest and most important connection is between you and you, your higher self, your God self, you, not what anyone else is saying. And so as soon as someone gives me an answer, I'm addicted now to going back to getting more answers and reaching outside of me.
Totally. So sovereignty is the outcome of this. Sovereignty, free will, choice. So interesting that we were just talking about how to get people awake. And then the question is, how many people are awake?
Yes.
And what I get is that here's us, let's say minimum 10%, but I get it's way more than that. So, and then how many are awake? It's like the masses are at that on their knees point. So we're at a point where this could become 100% really fast. And it's all about how do we invite them? Because what is we've had to go through, we've woken up the hard way.
Yes.
And we want to invite them, and you can say, well, how come they get off easy? And it's like, well, that's none of our business. That's between us and God. And when we go off world and we go into our soul contract, we'll know why we were the ones that had to go about it this hard way, and that we get to help them do it easier. It's sort of like saying, well, I had to suffer when I was a kid, so my kids should have to suffer too. It's like, well, can we give them the same lessons with way less pain, confusion, disempowerment? So it's like how we invite them into being awake is going to determine. So yeah, it's like we could go from 10% to 90% in the next 9 months.
Wow. Because I was about the other day, right? It's like this whole ignorance is bliss, right? It's too painful to go the other way. So people don't want to do it. But if it's less painful, and it's like, I'm not judging. I was duped. We're all duped. Like nobody is immune to being duped or being hurt here. Like, however, at some point, perhaps it's going to be too hard to do the ignorance is bliss anymore. Perhaps.
Well, that's where we're at. That's what I'm seeing. So remember, I just said we're going to go, we're going to see it go down. It's going down now. And that's what my daughter, who has a finger on the pulse, at least here in Canada, anyway, in Western Canada, she says, oh my gosh, Mom, in the last 10 days, like with all these fires and with all the way that people are reacting with the Maui and the Hurricane Hillary and all this, that, and the other, it's like, she's like, people are just going like, whoa, oh my God, what's happening? And everybody's talking Armageddon. Everybody's talking about we got to run to the hills and get food. And so it's this moment. We're in this moment. Let's make the most of it, folks. Let's do it right this time, not the way we kind of blundered around with the plan. You know what? It's like we have the opportunity to get people looking transparently. And so I invite you and encourage you all, watch this documentary. Please do not despair. I'm going to be giving you more and more information about how we can actually take real world pragmatic steps to address this and to create the healing alternatives for planet Earth and for ourselves and each other. And let's see if we can find a way to bring this information to people in our community. Share this video, choose carefully how you introduce it, and talk about, okay, climate is going to be top of the conversation for the next 6 months solid Everybody's talking about it. So go in wise, go in strategically, knowing if you can get everyone aware that there's been large scale, long term climate manipulation happening, and that is the major contributor to why things are the way they are right now, not the other things that do contribute. Because if we say they don't, well, then we just look ridiculous. We look like idiots if we say that those things don't contribute. So it's like we've got to bring them in and say it's this and this, but this is something that has been hidden. And we need this to be disclosed now. We need enough public questioning for this to come out.
So what are the words, if you could give us some words, how you would even begin? You know, is it, you know, 3 weeks to flatten the curve? Like we've seen that before, and now people are getting locked down. And I have a friend, and this is what she said, that they're getting locked down. They can't get food.
Yeah,
so
I feel
the solution, and just that sort of thing is just dropping and making conversation. What do you have to contribute to that? And yeah, I saw that too. And what about this? Or
totally. I mean, that's, people love to be asked their opinions. So you can talk about, you know, you can point out again, what is the main cause? So you can say to people, you know, how do you feel about like stopping driving? And do you really think that this is going to be solved the way it is? Do you think it's going to be solved in 3 weeks or 3 months? Is it going to be years? How many years of our life are we going to be compromised and having to just ask them questions? What do they think?
Right.
Because I think a lot of times people are like, they haven't even thought about it. So if they start saying, well, yeah, gosh, you know, I don't trust the government, blah, 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 blah. Okay. And then you say, well, you know, believe it or not, I've actually seen a documentary that talks about this climate, that they've been actually manipulating the climate for decades, since after World War II. And, you know, you've seen all that spray in the skies, and it's like they're making the earth is getting drier. And maybe that's a big part, like saying things like, maybe, I wonder, what do you think? The languaging that's inviting, instead of saying, you know, I know, and so blah, blah, blah says blah, 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 like, you know, and scaring the bejesus out of them, right? It's like, so getting that taught, like expanding into curiosity, and then like, oh, I wonder, you know, somebody sent me a website about something like that. Do you want to look at that? Do you want me to share that with you? If you get a yes,
there's your end.
Only 1 in 10 of those people is actually going to have the guts to open it. But if they do, yeah.
And once they get it, you can't unsee it. And so once you see that, then they're the ones on the front lines. And so that's amazing.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's the thing. So, did you want another question? How are you? Where are you with this?
I feel like we're probably good. We've been going for over almost an hour and 40 minutes. So thank you to everyone. This is a really big topic, and I do want to go into it again, because it's going to be, to me, this is going to be one of the major things that is needing to be shared and brought to the attention of the masses over the next few months. And the way we go about it is going to be really, really essential. So please watch the video below. Thank you so much, Sue, for sharing and conversing with me today. I feel like we covered so much really amazing ground pre conversation as well. So next week we'll resist talking ahead of time, and we'll just get right on to the live. Yeah, beautiful.
Thank you.
Blessings to all of you, and look forward to seeing you here. We're going to be here at the same time next week, and I hope that I'm going to figure out how to do live streaming on both YouTube and Rumble at the same time. So look forward to sharing again then. Bye for now.
Bye. Thank you.